Hey everyone. Before we dive into today's story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. It really helps YouTube recommend more stories like this one to you. All right, let's jump right in.
The rain had been coming down for hours, hammering the windshield so hard it felt like the sky was trying to punch through. I'd been driving since El Paso, pushing through the night with just the sound of the wipers and the low hum of the engine to keep me company. My eyes were burning, my hands stiff from the wheel. Then I saw her. She was standing right on the shoulder, near mile marker 83, a dark blur in my headlights. Soaked through, her hair plastered against her face. The rain bounced off her like she didn't even notice. At first, I thought she was a deer, the way she froze when my lights hit her. But when I slowed down, I realized it was a woman. Something in me said keep going. Every story, every warning about stopping for strangers on the border highways, my brain shouted it at me. But she looked lost. No car, no phone light, no sign of anyone else for miles. Just endless wet blacktop and that one broken woman in the storm. Pulled over. She didn't move when I rolled down the passenger window. Just stared. Her face was pale, her clothes torn. She looked about 30, maybe younger, though it was hard to tell with the rain. "You okay?" I shouted over the storm dot. She blinked slowly, like she was just remembering where she was. "I need to get past the fence," she said. Her voice was calm, too calm for the way she looked. "The fence?" I asked. "You mean the border fence?" She nodded once. Rainwater dripped from her chin. I couldn't tell if she was shaking from cold or something else. I hesitated, but the cold guilt in my chest won. "All right," I said. "Get in. I can take you a little ways." She climbed up without a word. I smelled mud and metal and something faintly sweet like rotting fruit. I turned the heat up and got back on the road. For a while, neither of us said anything. The only sound was the tires cutting through puddles and the faint hiss of rain on glass. I glanced at her. She was staring out the side window, eyes wide open, unfocused. Her hands rested still in her lap, fingers long and pale, nails clean despite the dirt on her clothes. "Where you headed exactly?" I asked. "Before the fence," she said again. "Just before." That phrasing hit me weird. "Not to the fence." "Before it. You got family there?" I tried again. She didn't answer. She just pressed her forehead to the cold glass and whispered something I couldn't catch. "What was that?" She turned to look at me, slow and deliberate, her eyes meeting mine. They were light gray, almost silver. "You shouldn't drive this late," she said. "They come out after midnight." A chill crawled up my spine. Who does? But she was quiet again, her eyes drifting back to the window dot. The clock on the dash read 12:41 a.m. The highway was empty. Just the long line of reflective paint and my headlights cutting through the dark. I kept trying to tell myself she was just tired, maybe delirious from being out in the rain. People wander the roads all the time, but the longer she sat there, the colder it felt in the cab. I turned the heat higher, but it didn't help much. Every few miles, she'd murmur something too soft to understand. Once, I swear she said they buried me here. I pretended not to hear it. "Hey," I said after another few minutes. "You got a name?" She turned her head slowly, like she was thinking about it. "Clara." "All right, Clara. I'm Ben." No reaction. "You from around here?" She smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I used to be." I laughed nervously. "Used to be, huh? You move or something?" Her smile faded. "Something like that." I kept one hand on the wheel and one near my phone. I didn't want to make it obvious, but I thought about calling someone, maybe the state patrol. But what would I say? "Hey, I picked up a wet woman on the side of the road and she's creeping me out?" No, they'd think I was drunk. We passed a sign for a rest area, 10 miles ahead. I figured I'd pull in, maybe grab some coffee, make sure she had a ride or at least somewhere dry to stay. That's when I noticed the smell. It came out of nowhere, sharp and sour, like wet metal and roadkill. I checked the vents, thought maybe something got caught near the radiator, but it was stronger near her side. I glanced over, and for the first time, she was looking straight at me. Her eyes looked darker now, like the silver had drained out. She tilted her head just slightly, studying me like I was the strange one. "You shouldn't stop," she said. Her voice was low, almost kind, but final, like a warning, not advice. I gripped the wheel tighter. "I just figured you'd want to get warm." "Maybe, don't stop," she said again. "Not yet." I didn't. Something in her tone froze me. A few minutes later, I realized I couldn't hear the rain anymore. The wipers were still moving, but the sound was gone. The hum of the tires had faded too, replaced by this low, vibrating hum like a faraway generator or a power line buzzing under the skin of the earth. The road ahead looked wrong, the lines blurred, like heat ripples in summer, even though it was cold. The reflectors on the guardrail pulsed faintly. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes. "You seeing this?" I said, trying to laugh. Clara didn't answer. I looked again, and she was gone. Slammed the brake so hard my seatbelt dug into my chest. The truck skidded, fishtailed, stopped halfway on the shoulder. She wasn't in the seat. The door was still locked. The seatbelt was untouched. My heart was pounding. I reached over, half expecting to feel wet fabric. Something. Nothing. Just a faint smear of mud on the passenger mat and a strand of long, dark hair. I stared at the empty seat for a long minute. Rain starting again, pounding like fists against the roof. Then I heard it. 3 knocks. Slow, from outside the passenger door. I froze. My brain went blank except for the sound. 3 steady knocks. Not loud, but precise. I leaned forward, trying to see through the window, but it was fogged over. I wiped it with my sleeve. Nothing there. Another knock. This time, right by my ear. I jumped back, hit the opposite door. My breathing was so loud I couldn't hear anything else for a second. "Clara?" I whispered. My voice shook. No answer. I grabbed the flashlight from the glove box and opened the door. Rain poured in, soaking the seat instantly. The road was empty. No footprints in the mud. Just my own from earlier. I swung the light across the road, the fence line, the trees beyond. Everything looked normal. Quiet. I started to feel stupid, like I'd dreamed it. Then, I turned back toward the cab. The passenger door was closed again. I was sure I'd left it open. I was sure, and through the wet glass, I could see something written in the condensation on the inside of the window. It looked like a handprint. I didn't get out again after that. I locked both doors, slammed it into gear, and got moving. My hands were shaking so bad I almost missed the shift. The smell came back stronger. Wet dirt and copper. I rolled the window down a crack for air. But the smell stayed inside. When I looked at the clock again, it was 2:09 a.m. somehow. I'd lost over an hour. The rest area sign came up again. Same one, same distance. That didn't make sense. I hadn't turned around. My stomach dropped. I looked back at the mile marker we passed. It said 83. Again. I single quotes deep and driving in circles without realizing it. I slowed down, scanning the sides of the road for anything familiar. The rain had turned to mist now, thick and gray, swirling around the truck like smoke. Then I saw her again. Clara was standing by the same marker. Her head was tilted the same way, hair hanging over her face. But this time, she was smiling. A small, sad smile, like she was sorry. I didn't stop. I couldn't. I just kept driving, staring straight ahead, trying not to blink. But the farther I went, the heavier the air felt, like the cab was filling with something invisible. My ears started to ring. The headlights dimmed for a moment, flickered. I blinked. And she was back in the passenger seat. Wet, silent, staring ahead. "Clara," I whispered. "What the hell is happening?" She didn't move. "Please. What do you want?" She turned her head slowly toward me. Her eyes were no longer gray. They were dark, hollow, bottomless. "I told you," she said. "Before the fence." I didn't remember pulling over, but I must have, because the truck was idling on the shoulder again. I could see the faint outline of the border fence, a head tall, metallic, stretching into fog. Clara opened her door. The light flickered. "I have to go now," she said. "Wait," I said, reaching for her arm. It was ice cold. "Who are you?" She looked down at my hand, then at me. "You shouldn't drive alone here," she whispered. "Not after midnight." And then she stepped out, the second her foot hit the ground. The lights in the cab went out. When they came back on, she was gone. Only her wet footprints remained on the step. I sat there shaking, every instinct screaming to leave, but I couldn't move. My body felt heavy, like the air had thickened. That's when I noticed my radio was on. Static hissed softly through the speakers. Then my voice came through. "Don't stop." It said dot, and the channel went dead. I don't remember putting the truck back in gear. 1 second the radio hissed. The next I was rolling again, slow, careful, like the road might collapse under me if I pressed too hard. The rain had stopped, but the air outside was heavy enough to taste. Every sound seemed muffled. The hum of the tires, the creak of the wheel, even my own breathing. The world felt padded, sealed off, like I'd driven into a space that didn't belong to any map. I kept glancing at the passenger seat, empty, but the seatbelt buckle still rocked slightly, tapping the side of the chair as if someone had just unclicked it. "Don't stop," I whispered to myself. It was the only thing keeping me anchored. The fence drew closer, a jagged black stripe cutting across the desert. Floodlights lined it every 50 yards, but half were burned out. The ones still working flickered weakly, throwing quick shadows that looked like people moving just out of view. The smell was back again. Rust, damp earth, something old. I rolled the window down farther and let the night air sting my face. I needed to feel real. That's when I saw the truck stoplights ahead dim red glow against the mist. I hadn't seen it before. No signs, no listing on my GPS. Just appeared, like it had been waiting for me. A narrow gravel path led up to it. I almost kept going, but the fuel gauge blinked low, the orange light pulsing like a warning. The thought of running out of gas on that road was worse than whatever waited inside the glow. Pulled in, the place looked half abandoned. One pump, a single-story building with faded paint and a flickering neon open sign hanging by one nail. A payphone leaned crooked beside the door. No other cars. No noise except the soft, distant hum of the fence. I shut off the engine and listened. Nothing. Even the insects were silent inside. The air smelled of dust and coffee that had died hours ago. The overhead lights buzzed weakly. A man stood behind the counter, head down, reading a paper that looked 20 years old. "Fuel?" he asked without looking up. "Yeah, pump 1, I said. My voice sounded too loud. He nodded, turned a switch, then finally lifted his head. His eyes met mine, and for a second I froze. They were pale gray. The same shade as hers. "You come from the East Road?" he asked. "Yeah. Mile marker 83? My throat went dry. "Yeah." He folded the paper slowly. "Then you seen her?" I didn't answer. He sighed, rubbed his temples like a man with a headache that never goes away. "You shouldn't have stopped." "I know," I said quietly. "She was looking for a ride long before I started work here. Long before the fence was finished. Folks still pick her up sometimes. Always end up back where they started." I glanced at the window. My truck sat outside, lights off, but the passenger side window was fogged again from the inside. I felt my stomach twist. Who was she? The man hesitated. used to live near the border, back before the expansion. Her family's house was condemned when they started digging the foundation. She went missing one night. They found her car by that marker, door open, keys still hanging. Rain washed everything else away. He looked at me with a kind of tired pity. They say she never crossed. Just keeps walking the road, trying to find her way home. Some nights, she hitches a ride to make sure she's still remembered. I wanted to tell him about the voice on the radio, about losing an hour, about her saying before the fence, but the words tangled in my throat. He slid me a receipt with trembling fingers. "You drive straight from here," he said. "Don't look in the mirrors. Don't answer if you hear her talking again." I nodded, though I didn't believe him. When I turned toward the door, he added quietly, "If you pass 83 again, don't stop. Keep your lights on high. And whatever you do, don't let her touch you." I filled the tank, hands shaking. The nozzle clicked, and for a moment, I thought I heard footsteps behind me, bare feet on gravel. I turned. Nothing. The wind picked up, carrying a faint whisper through the fence line. Before the fence, I climbed into the truck and locked the doors. When I started the engine, the radio came alive again. Static, then a faint voice. "Mine. Don't stop," it said, same as before. But underneath, almost hidden, was another voice, hers murmuring words I couldn't make out. I twisted the knob to off. The static didn't stop. I ripped the whole radio out of its mount and threw it onto the floor. The hiss kept going, quieter now, like it was coming from inside the speakers themselves. I pressed the pedal hard. The truck roared forward, gravel spraying behind me. For a while, everything was fine. The sky cleared. The fence faded in the side mirror. The road opened wide and empty. I passed mile marker 84, then 85. Relief spread through my chest. Maybe the old man had been right, just drive and don't look back. But then, at 86, the air shifted again. The engine's rumble echoed wrong, like I was driving through a tunnel, though the land was flat. The temperature dropped fast enough that my breath fogged. I checked the dashboard clock. 2:09 a.m. still. It hadn't moved since before. "Come on," I whispered. "Come on." The lights flickered once, twice. When they came back, the road sign ahead glowed through the mist. Mile marker 83. I slammed the brakes. The truck shuddered, rattling every bolt. The marker stood to my right, tall and silver in the headlights, the same bend in the guardrail, the same patch of mud, and she was there again. Clara, standing perfectly still, facing the road. Her hair clung to her face, dripping though no rain fell. I locked the doors automatically. My chest felt tight, like the seatbelt was squeezing me. She started walking toward the truck. Slow, calm steps. Each one made a soft slap against the asphalt. I pressed the horn. It blared, cutting through the night, but she didn't flinch. "Stay back," I yelled through the glass. She stopped beside the driver's door. Up close, her eyes weren't hollow anymore. They were full, reflecting my headlights like mirrors. For a second, I thought I saw my own face inside them, older, tired, with the same gray eyes. She lifted her hand and pressed it to the window. Her palm left a print that smoked faintly in the cold air. "You shouldn't drive alone here," she whispered. Then she smiled, small, almost kind. "I don't want to be alone anymore." The cab lights flickered. The air smelled like rain again. And in the reflection of the windshield, I saw movement in the sleeper behind me. Just the faintest shift, like someone turning over. I spun around. Nothing. Empty blankets. Tools, coffee cup. When I looked forward again, Clara was gone, but the driver's seat beside me was wet. The next part is a blur. I remember headlights in the distance, flashing past like lightning. I remember the steering wheel jerking in my hands. I remember shouting, though I couldn't hear my own voice. When everything steadied again, dawn was breaking. The fence was gone. The road looked normal, just a 2-lane stretch cutting through low hills. My dashboard clock finally ticked forward, 6:32. I pulled into a diner just off the exit and sat there for a long time, hands gripping the wheel until they stopped shaking. Inside, the smell of coffee and bacon should have felt comforting. It didn't. The fluorescent lights were too bright. Every sound felt sharp. The waitress poured me a cup. "Rough night?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "You could say that." She smiled kindly. "You're not the first to come in looking like that. Lot of folks get turned around out by 83. GPS goes haywire. People ever talk about a woman out there?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her smile froze. "You saw her too?" I didn't answer. She leaned closer. "My brother drives freight. Said he picked up a girl once, years back. Same spot. She asked him to take her before the fence. He said she vanished before sunrise." She set the coffee down and walked away without another word. When I got back to the truck, the inside smelled clean like soap. The seat was dry again. Everything looked normal. But on the passenger window, faint in the dust, were 5 fingerprints arranged like someone pressing from the outside. I wiped them away, started the engine, and headed east. The radio was still dead. Wires hanging loose, but I swear I could hear faint static behind the engine's hum. Every now and then it shaped itself into words, low and blurred. Sometimes it sounds like "before the fence." Sometimes it sounds like my own name. It's been 3 weeks. I haven't taken that route again, but the truck's GPS keeps marking a saved destination I never entered. Mile marker 83. No matter how many times I delete it, it comes back. Same coordinates. Same note field empty, except for one line typed in all caps. "Don't stop. I changed trucks last week. Brand new rig, different company, different routes. But last night, parked at a rest area in Arizona, I woke up to knocking on the passenger door. 3 slow knocks. When I finally looked, the window was fogged from the inside again, and written in the condensation, clear as breath, were 3 words: "Before the fence." The night I heard my own voice on the radio, I was halfway between Tucson and Lordsburg, running a refrigerated load of produce that was already 2 hours late. I hadn't slept in 30 hours, but that wasn't new. The hum of the tires, the vibration of the seat, and the soft crackle of Channel 19 were my only company. It was a quiet stretch-flat desert, the kind of black that swallows your headlights whole. Most drivers kept the CB low out here, except for the occasional warning about deer or border patrol. That night, though, there was nothing. Just static, like the air itself was holding its breath. Then a voice came through. "Breaker 19. You out there, Ben?" I froze. It was my name. The voice sounded rougher than mine, but close enough to make my scalp crawl like someone mimicking me with a cold. I reached for the mic. "Yeah, this is Ben. Who's calling?" Silence, then faint static again. I waited. Sometimes other drivers played pranks, especially if they'd caught your name at a truck stop. After about a minute, the same voice came through again, same tone, same inflection, same everything. "You shouldn't stop." That made my chest tighten. "What's that supposed to mean?" I said. "Who is this?" Static. Then a short burst of laughter. My laughter. I threw the mic down and turned the CB off. The hum of the road filled the cab again. I told myself it was a skip signals bouncing weird through the atmosphere, sometimes catching fragments of old transmissions. It happened. But not like that. I drove for another 30 minutes before the silence got too loud. Out there, with nothing but desert and sky, you start to crave noise, even creepy noise. I turned the CB back on. Channel 19 hissed softly. "Ben," the voice said again, clearer now. "You still out there?" I didn't touch the mic. I just listened. The voice kept talking, low and steady, like it was sitting right next to me. long road tonight. Real empty. I can see you. I checked my mirrors instinctively. No headlights behind me. No one ahead. Just endless blacktop. Where are you? I asked finally. Static stretched for a moment, then the voice said, right where you are. The words hit me hard. I slammed the CB off again. Around 1 a.m., I stopped at a rest area to splash my face with cold water. The place was deserted except for a single semi parked way down, at the other end no lights. No sound. I climbed out, the desert air hitting me cold and sharp. The hum of the truck faded behind me, replaced by the buzzing of the lights overhead. I splashed water on my face, stared at my reflection in the cracked mirror. Get some sleep, man, I muttered. You're hearing things. A voice answered from behind me. Yeah, you're hearing things. I spun around so fast I slipped on the wet concrete. No one was there. Just my truck, idling, and that silent semi in the corner. My heart was hammering. I grabbed a flashlight from the cab and shined it toward the other truck. The logo on the trailer was faded beyond recognition. The cab windows were dark. Hey. I called out. No response. I walked a little closer. The gravel crunched under my boots. When I was about 10 feet away, I saw my own call sign, then D, scrawled in dirt on the side of the trailer. Like someone had written it with a finger, I stumbled back. My flashlight flickered, then went out. When it came back on, the writing was gone. I ran back to my truck, slammed the door, locked it, and got the hell out of there. Back on the road. The CB stayed off. I didn't even look at it. The digital clock on the dash glowed 1:47 a.m. The desert was so flat that the stars felt too close, pressing down, reflecting in my windshield like a second sky. After a few miles, I heard a faint crackle from the speaker, even though the radio was still off. I turned the volume knob, thinking maybe I'd bumped it. It was definitely off. But the static grew louder. Then the voice again. Breaker 19. Long way from home, aren't we? I gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles popped. How are you doing that? I said under my breath. You tell me. It said. The cab lights dimmed for a second. The air went cold, sharp enough to sting my lungs. The radio light flickered to life by itself. Don't look in the mirrors, the voice whispered. I did. Behind me, just for a moment, I saw headlights. 2 small dots in the dark. They were close, too close, but when I blinked, they were gone. The voice laughed again, soft, distorted. See, you looked. I reached for the CB and ripped the power cord out. The voice stopped, but the hum of the truck changed deeper now, like the road beneath me wasn't solid anymore. I realized I was shaking. The sky started to pale ahead. False dawn, the kind that tricks you into thinking morning's close. I told myself if I could just make it to Deming, I'd park and rest. I hadn't hallucinated since my rookie year. But lack of sleep does things. That's what I told myself. Anyway, then, about 10 miles before the next exit, I saw something glowing faintly on the shoulder. A CB mic. It was lying in the dirt. The coiled cable stretched across the gravel. The little red light on the base blinked steadily, even though it wasn't connected to anything. I should have kept driving. God knows I should have. But I slowed down. Curiosity or fear, I don't know which, dragging me closer. When my headlights hit it full on, the mic hissed to life. Breaker 19. Ben, you copy? My voice again. Clear this time. No distortion. I hit the gas so hard the tires screamed. The mic disappeared in the rear view, swallowed by dark. I drove until the sun started bleeding over the horizon, red and dirty. My chest felt like I'd swallowed glass. When I finally pulled over to breathe, I realized I'd been hearing a faint whisper through the static of the engine, words that didn't belong to any station, repeating, low and even, you shouldn't stop. That morning, at a diner off I-10, the cook recognized my truck logo. You're the guy from the dispatch frequency, right? We picked up your transmission last night. Sounded like you were talking to yourself. I felt the blood drain from my face. What do you mean? He shrugged. Whole bunch of us heard it around 1:30. You said your name, then it sounded like an echo. Thought you were just fooling around. I tried to smile, but my mouth wouldn't move right. Back in the parking lot, I checked my CB. It was unplugged. Wires still hanging loose. The channel display glowed anyway, .19. I didn't start the truck right away. The CB screen still glowed, the number 19 pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. I unplugged it again twice, and it stayed on. The hum of the idling engine filled the cab, steady, almost comforting, until I realized the rhythm matched my breathing. I shut the engine off. Silence. For a few seconds, I just sat there, watching the desert heat shimmer through the windshield. Then, faintly from the dead speaker, click breaker 19. I yanked the battery cables loose. The light finally went dark. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. Area code 915 El Paso. My dispatcher's code. I hesitated, then answered. Ben, a voice said. I almost dropped the phone. It was my voice again, calm, flat. Don't do this, I said. Whoever you are, quit it. A pause then. You left me on the shoulder. Static crackled through the line. The call cut. I threw the phone onto the seat and started the truck again, flooring it until the tires squealed. By noon, I reached Deming. I fueled up, grabbed coffee, forced myself to act normal. I told the clerk the radio was picking up interference. He nodded like he'd heard that one before. But when I went back outside, I noticed something new. A second CB antenna on my cab bent, old, dust-caked. I hadn't installed it. I didn't even know where it came from. I climbed onto the step and tugged at it. The metal was warm, almost hot, and for a split second, I thought I felt a pulse under my fingers, steady, living. I jerked my hand away. A man fueling his pickup next to me said, "Hey, you on channel 19 last night? You were talking about somebody following you." I stared at him. "You heard that?" "Yeah, bunch of us did. Thought it was a prank." He smiled, but it looked forced, like he wasn't sure it was a joke. I spent the rest of the afternoon driving west. Sun high, sky wide open, nothing weird. It almost felt normal. Then, around dusk, the CB light blinked back on. I hadn't touched it. The mic swung gently from its hook, swaying like someone had just let go. I told myself to leave it alone. Just ignore it. The speaker crackled. "Long road tonight," my voice said. "You still out there?" I gripped the wheel tighter. "What do you want from me?" Silence. Then, "Pull over." "No." The static deepened, layered with something like breathing slow, too close to the mic. "Pull over, Ben. We need to talk." I kept driving. The headlights dimmed. The dash flickered. The voice rose again, louder, overlapping itself. "You left me. You left me. You left me." My throat went dry. "Left who?" I shouted. The answer came soft, almost kind. "You." Something slammed the back of the cab, a heavy thud that made the mirrors shake. I hit the brakes, heart hammering, jumped out with my flashlight. The trailer was clean. No dents, no marks, nothing. The air smelled of metal and ozone, like after lightning. I circled back to the door and froze. The passenger seatbelt was buckled. I hadn't buckled it. The air inside the cab felt heavier, like someone had been breathing there. I could see a faint smear on the window, the shape of a hand pressed against the glass from the inside. I climbed back in, locked the doors, and kept moving. I couldn't think about it anymore. Every time I tried to make sense of it, my mind looped back to the same phrase. "Breaker 19, you copy?" By full dark, I'd reached a section of highway. With no service and no shoulder lights, just me and the hum of the tires. The radio stayed quiet for nearly an hour. I started to believe it was over. Then, faintly, the mic clicked. "Breaker 19. I swallowed hard but didn't answer. "Ben," the voice said. "Pull over, we're tired." "We," I whispered. The voice chuckled my chuckle, the one I'd heard 1,000 times in the cab when I talked to myself. "Yeah," it said. "We've been out here a long time." The CB light glowed brighter, flooding the cab in dull red. For a second, I thought I saw another shape in the glass. My own reflection split slightly to the side, mouth moving half a beat behind mine. "Stop the truck," the other me said. "You're gonna miss the turn." I pressed the accelerator instead. The road ahead shimmered, the lines bending like heat waves though it was cold. The dashboard clock froze at 1:47 a.m. again. A sign flashed by in the high beams. Mile marker 83.0. That was impossible. I was hundreds of miles away. The voice laughed quietly. "Told you." Same road, every time. The static swelled until it drowned the engine noise. My mirrors showed twin headlights behind me, again closer, bright white. I blinked, and they doubled. 4 lights, then 6. "Then gone," I whispered. "What do you want from me?" The CB crackled. "To make sure you don't drive alone." I don't remember pulling over, but when the noise stopped, I was parked on the shoulder. The engine ticked quietly, cooling. The world outside was gray, colorless, like the air before dawn. A faint knocking came from the sleeper compartment. 3 slow taps, metal on metal. I turned, heart pounding. Who's back there? Nothing. Just the rumpled blankets. Then, through the CB. "Breaker 19. A pause. "You there, Ben?" My throat went dry. "Yeah," I said. My own voice came back through the speaker at the exact same time. Perfect unison. Then both voices said together, "Good. Keep it that way." The radio went silent. Morning. Real morning this time. Sunlight hit the windshield, too bright. My body ached like I'd been driving for days, though the odometer hadn't moved more than a few miles. I checked the CB again. Dead, wires still cut, but on the small display screen, a new number blinked faintly. 20. I didn't touch it. When I reached the next way station, the officer scanning my paperwork looked up and said, "Channel 19's been acting weird all week. Dispatch keeps getting transmissions that sound like you, but you're off-grid half the time." "You been rebroadcasting or something?" I forced a smile. "Probably a glitch." He handed my papers back, still watching me. "Just stay off that channel a while." That night, I parked early at a busy lot in Las Cruces. Lights, people, noise. I figured nothing strange could happen with company around. I fell asleep to the sound of other engines idling. Sometime after midnight, the CB mic clicked softly. "Click breaker 19. I didn't move. I kept my eyes shut. The voice came again, whisper soft. "New channel now. 20. You copy?" Static followed, then breathing, close to my ear. I opened my eyes. The mic was lying on the pillow beside me, the red light glowing faintly in the dark. "Don't drive alone," it said. And then the light went out. The first time I saw it, I thought it was a trick of light. You get that out here. Desert glare, heat ripples that turn the road ahead into a silver river. But this was after midnight, cool air coming through the vents. No mirages left to blame. I was westbound on I-40, hauling 40,000 pounds of produce. The road stretched empty for miles, the kind of darkness that makes you feel like the only human alive. My eyes had gone dry from staring, but I remember every detail. The stars sharp as nails, the smell of diesel, the thin whistle of wind sneaking through the cab seals. Then my mirrors filled with black. A truck behind me, a Peterbilt. No lights on, no running lamps, nothing. Just a shape swallowing the road. A void moving faster than it should have been able to. I flipped my high beams to warn him, but he didn't react. The outline stayed the same. Tall grille, long hood, wide fenders. Every part of it matte, like it had been painted with ash. "Buddy, you running dark?" I muttered and reached for the mic. "Breaker 19. Got a black Pete running, no lights east of Holbrook. You good back there? Static, no response. The channel was silent except for a faint, rhythmic hiss that almost sounded like breathing. The truck drew closer. Too close. I could make out his shape in the windshield, or thought I could. But there was no glare, no reflection. Just depthless dark. I eased onto the shoulder to let him pass. He didn't. He matched my speed exactly. Something about that crawl. Two machines locked side by side in the middle of nowhere made the hair rise on my arms. I could feel the weight of it through the air pressure. That low vibration you get when another rig runs too close. Pass already, I whispered. Nothing. Then the radio clicked. Keep your lane, a voice said. Flat as gravel. My own voice. I slammed the CB off. The Peterbilt drifted closer till its tires kissed the lane divider. I could see the rivets on its side panels now, old, dull, half buried in grime. And painted near the cab door, barely visible, were numbers, 1983. The year looked wrong on it, like it had been burned in instead of painted. I downshifted and pulled onto the shoulder completely. The black truck roared past without lights, no engine note, just wind, a sudden vacuum that rocked my trailer and left my ears ringing. Its taillights never came on. Within seconds it was gone, eaten by the dark. I sat there shaking, heart hammering hard enough to rattle my chest. It could have been a prank rig, I told myself. Some old driver who liked scaring rookies. But I'd been on the road 15 years. Nobody sneaks up on you like that without at least a glimmer of chrome or a hint of exhaust. I checked the mirrors again. Empty highway. When I finally started rolling, my headlights caught a scrap of metal on the shoulder. A fragment of mirror housing, black paint chipped to gray. I stopped long enough to pick it up. It was cold, almost sticky, like it had just come out of a freezer. I tossed it into the passenger footwell and kept going. At the next truck stop, I tried to laugh it off. Coffee, fluorescent lights, people moving, civilization. I told a couple of other drivers at the counter what I'd seen. One of them, a bearded guy with a faded U.S. Foods jacket, stopped chewing mid-bite. You said a black Peterbilt, no lights? Yeah. He glanced at the other driver, then back at me. Man, don't joke about that. There's been talk for years. Ghost truck, dark Pete, whatever. Folks see it before wrecks, always the same stretch, same time of night. Ghost story, the other guy said, but his laugh sounded hollow. The first driver leaned closer. My brother saw it once. Said it ran beside him for miles, never showed on radar, never hit the brake. Next morning, he woke up in his cab parked backward in the median. Didn't remember stopping. I tried to smile. Maybe he fell asleep. Maybe, he said. Except his dashcam caught 3 minutes of static. And in the middle of it, just for a frame, his own truck passing by in the opposite lane. He shrugged, drained his coffee, and left the cup spinning on the counter. Back in the cab, I told myself I wouldn't think about it anymore. The mirror shard on the floor glinted faintly under the dash light. I reached down to move it and realized it was vibrating, faint, rhythmic, in time with the engine idle. When I shut the truck off, it kept pulsing for a few seconds longer before going still. I wrapped it in a rag and stuffed it into the glove box. For the next few hours, nothing strange happened. I crossed into Arizona, the sky pinking up at the edges. The world felt alive again, dust devils twisting through sagebrush, long trains cutting the horizon. I started to think I'd finally shaken whatever weirdness that night had left on me. Then, a little after sunset the following day, dispatch pinged my tablet, reroute. Pick up at exit 83. I stared at the number until my stomach turned. It wasn't on my original manifest. But when dispatch says reroute, you reroute. Exit 83 was nothing but a frontage road and a decommissioned way station. The booth windows were smashed, the lot cracked and overgrown. I idled there, waiting for whoever was supposed to meet me. But no one came. The wind picked up, carrying that metallic smell again, like rain on steel, though the sky was clear. I tried calling dispatch, but my signal dropped to 0 bars. The CB hissed softly despite being off. Then, from somewhere behind the booth, an engine started. Low, guttural, steady. Headlights flared. Except they weren't headlights. They were darker than the air around them. Twin voids cutting through the twilight. The Peterbilt rolled out of the shadows. Even in daylight it looked wrong. Like a photograph printed without enough contrast. Edges too sharp. Body absorbing light instead of reflecting it. The number 1983 gleamed faintly on the cab. I couldn't see a driver. The windshield looked like smoked glass. "All right," I said out loud, half laughing to keep from shaking. Somebody's having a good time messing with me. The black truck idled opposite me, perfectly still. Then its headlights, those twin holes, brightened. Not with light, but with depth. Like openings in a tunnel. My dashboard clock froze. 12:47 a.m. That wasn't possible. The sun hadn't even fully set. The radio clicked on by itself. "Breaker 19. A voice said, the same flat gravel I'd heard before. "Keep your lane." I threw the truck into reverse, tires spitting gravel, and peeled back onto the interstate. The black Peterbilt didn't follow, not right away. It just sat there in my mirrors, idling, until the distance swallowed it. By the time I hit the next exit, my pulse had eased enough to breathe. I stopped at a small diner and parked under the bright canopy lights, where everything smelled of oil and fries and people. I stayed there till nearly midnight, drinking coffee I didn't want, staring at the parking lot, half expecting to see that dark shape glide past. Nothing. Finally, I went back to the truck, killed the lights, and lay down in the sleeper. The quiet felt safe. I must have dozed off, because when I opened my eyes again, everything outside was black. The engine was running. I didn't remember starting it. Through the windshield, a pair of dim shapes hovered ahead, 2 circles of absolute dark. About the height of headlights. And underneath the low rumble of the idling motor, I could hear it. A second engine. Perfectly synced with mine, breathing in the same rhythm. The moment the tires left the asphalt and hit the gravel of the rest area lot, I knew something was wrong. It was too quiet. No engines humming, no slamming of cab doors, no buzz of lights. Just the soft tick of my rig cooling down and the wind sliding across the mirror glass. I'd been driving 14 hours straight, eyelids twitching from caffeine. All I wanted was to shut the world off for an hour. The sign had said rest stop 47 2 miles, and I swear I'd used this exit before. But when I pulled in, it looked different. New paint on the lines, new vending machines, but the same rusted bathroom block crouching at the edge of the lot. I killed the headlights. The dark rushed in so fast it felt solid. The only light came from the vending machine window near the bathrooms, fluorescent and weak, flickering every few seconds. Moths were piled against the glass like wet paper. I climbed out, stretching my back until my spine cracked, and the cold hit. Not desert cool, this was damp, breath-stealing cold that didn't belong to Arizona nights. The air smelled like old metal and lemon cleaner. I grabbed my thermos, crossed the lot, and every crunch of gravel sounded too loud. When I pushed open the restroom door, the hinge squealed, and the echo seemed to go on too long, as if the room were bigger than it should be. Inside, one bulb burned over the sinks, and somewhere in the back a faucet dripped steadily. Drip, pause, drip. Each one sounded like it landed closer. I splashed water on my face. It came out colder than ice, numbing my hands instantly. For a moment, I thought I saw another reflection beside mine in the cracked mirror, a shape just outside the doorway, but when I turned, the entrance was empty. I told myself I was just tired. Long-haul drivers hallucinate when they push too hard. It's practically a rite of passage. Back in the lot, my rig sat under a patch of half-moon light. Everything looked normal until I noticed another truck parked 3 spaces down a white Freightliner with no plates. I hadn't seen it when I drove in. The cab was dark, but the driver's door stood half open, gently rocking. I hesitated, then called out, "You good, buddy?" No answer. The door kept swaying. I walked closer. The cab interior was spotless clean. No coffee cups, no jackets, no logbook. Only the faint smell of aftershave and something else, old dust maybe. The keys still hung from the ignition. When I leaned closer, I realized the engine was warm, humming faintly like someone had shut it off seconds ago. A cough echoed behind me. I spun around, flashlight ready. The lot was empty. I told myself to get back in my truck and lock the door, so that's what I did. Once inside, I shut the curtains, climbed into the sleeper, and tried to breathe normally. The silence pressed in again, thick, heavy. I set an alarm for 40 minutes, but I never fell asleep. Every time I started to drift, I'd hear a single knock on the cab wall. Just one, spaced out, like a heartbeat checking if I was still there. By the third knock, I whispered, "What do you want?" No reply. Only the slow creak of the trailer shifting in the wind. Finally, I couldn't take it. I slid out of the bunk, opened the curtain. Through the windshield, the white Freightliner was gone. Vanished. Not driven away, the gravel under the space was untouched. I turned the key, ready to leave, when my radio popped. It wasn't tuned to anything, but a voice bled through the static, low and strained. "You shouldn't stop here." Then silence. I looked at the CB screen. The display showed no channel, just a string of digits, 474747, repeating until it filled the line. The vending machine light blinked off outside, plunging the lot into total dark. PPPPPPP. Sure. Here's a safe continuation that keeps the fear grounded in isolation and perception, rather than depicting harm or supernatural violence. Rest. Stop 47 Part 2, approximately equals 1,350 words. I don't remember turning the key. 1 second I was staring at the blank CB display. The next the engine was running, and the headlights were carving a tunnel of white through the trees. I rolled forward, expecting the on-ramp to appear where it always had. It didn't. The pavement just ended. Gravel stretched ahead into an empty field, tire tracks fading into weeds. Behind me, the lot was dark again, no vending machine glow, no sign, no other rigs. I could still see my own lights bouncing off the restroom block, but the building looked older now, half collapsed, vines crawling over the doorway. I pulled a slow circle, the beam sweeping across the lot. Something metallic flashed near the bathrooms. For a heartbeat, I thought it was another truck, but it was only a road sign lying face down in the dirt. I got out to check it. The front was weather-stained. Letters barely legible under a crust of dust. Rest stop 47, closed since 2009. I just stood there with the wind lifting the edges of the sign and the sound of the engine idling behind me. My watch said 2:17 a.m., but my dash clock still read 11:47. Every clock I had stopped on 40-7. I backed away, climbed into the cab, and aimed for the service road. The headlights caught the white stripe at the edge of the asphalt again, like the road had quietly rebuilt itself under my tires. I pressed the accelerator and didn't look back. For a few miles, everything felt normal, speedometer steady, radio dead, just the hum of diesel and the rattle of loose cups. Then, out of habit, I glanced at the mile marker. 47. Another, a few miles later. 47. I slowed. Checked the map on my tablet. No data. The GPS arrow just turned in place. I drove until the gauge needle crept toward empty. Each time I passed a sign, the same number glared back. The same dark trees. The same cracked pavement patch on the right lane. I even passed my own discarded coffee cup lying on the shoulder. That's when the radio whispered again. "Still tired, driver?" It was my voice, hoarse, quieter than before. I didn't answer. I just kept driving, because stopping didn't feel like an option anymore. The horizon started to lighten, the pale blue that means dawn, but it never grew brighter than that early haze. The air stayed cold enough to fog the inside of the windshield. I rubbed it clear and noticed the words scrawled across the glass in the condensation. The backward from the outside. Stay awake, wiped it away with my sleeve. The letters smeared into nothing. Somewhere ahead a single set of taillights appeared, red pinpoints in the fog. Relief hit me hard. Another driver. Another person. I pushed to catch up. The closer I got, the stranger it looked. The lights didn't glow, they pulsed, dull and rhythmic, the way the vending machine had flickered. The rig itself was an old white Freightliner. The same one from the lot. I leaned on the horn. No reaction. I pulled alongside, ready to wave, and my stomach dropped. The cab was empty. The wheel moved on its own, turning smoothly, keeping the truck straight. Through the window, I could see the driver's seatbelt clipped across thin air. The Freightliner slowed, letting me pass, then fell in behind me. Its lights grew brighter until they filled both mirrors, so close I couldn't tell where its grill ended and my trailer began. I hit the mic. Whoever's behind me, back off. Static. Then, faintly, you left the door open. Every hair on my arms lifted. I glanced toward the sleeper. The curtain moved. Just a slow sway, like the rhythm of someone breathing back there. I pulled onto the shoulder, slammed it in park, grabbed the flashlight, and yanked the sleeper curtain wide. Nothing, just my blankets in a heap. When I turned back, the mirrors were black. Not tinted completely black, like they'd been painted. My headlights bounced off them instead of showing the road. For a second I thought I'd gone blind. Then the CB clicked again. Exits ahead, driver. You can rest now. The mirrors cleared. There was an off-ramp sign lit in the distance. I don't remember taking it, but the tires crunched onto gravel again, and suddenly I was back in the same cracked lot. Same restroom. Same vending machine glow. Only this time, everything looked newer. Fresh paint. A family car parked near the picnic tables. A woman walking a dog under the streetlight. It was daylight. I stepped out, blinking hard. The woman smiled at me, polite, ordinary. Morning. You driving through? I nodded slowly. Yeah. I guess. She looked toward the highway. This place gives me the creeps. Been closed for years, but they keep the lights on for some reason. I looked back at my truck. The cab was spotless. No wrapped rag, no dust. My dash clock read 8:47 a.m. When I turned again, the woman and the dog were gone. The car too. I left the rest area without shutting off the engine once. I drove until I hit a real town gas station, people. Noise, and parked under the brightest lights I could find. The attendant filled my tank, glancing at my door. You come up from the border? He asked. Yeah, why? He wiped his hands on a rag. Just strange, man. We pulled a couple of old rigs out of rest stop 47 years ago when it closed. Both drivers asleep at the wheel, tanks dry. They said the lights out there still come on sometimes. He shrugged. Guess they wired the timer wrong. I didn't answer. I paid, got coffee, and sat behind the wheel until the cup went cold. When I finally pulled onto the highway again, the first sign I passed read mile marker, 46. I almost laughed out loud with relief. Then another sign glinted in the rearview mirror as I drove past it. A small green plate someone had bolted to the back of my cab. Rest stop 47. The letters were clean. Freshly painted. The wind carried a faint sound through the open window metal on metal. Slow and steady, like a faucet dripping somewhere just behind me. Drip. Pause. Drip. The first time I heard it, I thought it was just the road itself complaining. Anyone who spent long nights hauling knows the sound. a low groan under the tires when the temperature drops and the asphalt contracts. But this one had a rhythm, almost a voice hiding inside the vibration. I was eastbound on I-8, near the stretch that runs parallel to the fence line. Midnight, windless, the world a flat mirror of sand and sodium light. My trailer rattled every few miles with the same pulse, a dull thump 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 that seemed to echo from underneath. Not behind Dot at first. I tried to time it with the seams in the pavement, but the beats didn't match. Sometimes faster, sometimes slow, as if the sound were following my breathing instead of my speed. I cracked the window, letting in the smell of hot dust and diesel. The sound didn't fade. If anything, it rose, a faint hum threading up through the floorboards, buzzing against my boots. When I pulled onto the shoulder to check the tires, the noise stopped. I stepped out into the heat. The air was heavy, no wind, just a low hum from power lines that stretched forever. The road under my flashlight looked normal. Tires fine, hubcaps tight, nothing leaking. I crouched, touched the asphalt, and nearly jerked my hand back. It was warm. Not sun warm. Living warm like skin after a fever. I stayed crouched there, breathing through my mouth, feeling the vibration faintly through my fingertips. It wasn't the truck. The engine was off. The hum was coming from the road itself. When I climbed back in, I told myself fatigue was doing tricks. I'd been awake 20 hours, chasing a schedule no human could keep. Still, I drove slower, easing the tires along the line, half expecting to hear the noise again. It didn't take long. 30 minutes later, the pulse returned, louder this time, steady, almost musical, like someone drumming on the underside of the trailer. My mirrors stayed empty, and the desert around me was so flat I could see the fence lights blinking miles away. Then the hum shifted. It wasn't random anymore. It rose into a pattern, 4 beats, pause, 2 quick taps, the rhythm of someone knocking on a door. My throat went dry. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles whitened. The sound matched my heartbeat perfectly. When I hit the next rest area, I rolled to a stop and killed the lights. The hum faded again, leaving only the chirp of insects. The pavement shimmered under the moon, cracked and silver. I sat there for a long time, engine off, counting my breaths. After 10 minutes I heard it again, faint, almost a whisper now, the same pulse, coming from every direction, like the ground itself was breathing under the concrete. I slept maybe an hour. When I woke, dawn was a dull smear over the mountains. I made coffee on the dashboard burner and turned the CB on for noise. Static hissed, then cleared. A voice came through, distant and sleepy. Anyone else hearing it out there? I grabbed the mic. Hearing what? A pause. The road. Keeps talking. Been at it all week. Before I could reply, another voice broke in, sharp, urgent. Don't answer it. You answer, it follows. The channel went dead. I stared at the mic for a long time before setting it back in the cradle. The rest of the day passed quiet. The hum came and went, sometimes faint as memory, sometimes so strong it made the dashboard rattle. By late afternoon, I pulled into a way station near Yuma. A mechanic checked the trailer, even rode a few hundred yards with me. Nothing wrong, he said. Bearings fine, brakes clean. I asked if he'd ever heard the road itself make noise. He laughed. Out here? You might be hearing the border sensors. They're buried under the asphalt to pick up movement. That made sense. I wanted it to make sense. I paid him, thanked him, and rolled out again. Night came fast. The desert swallowed color, and the sky turned heavy with stars. The hum started up almost immediately after I crossed back onto the main highway. Louder now, insistent, like something alive beneath the tires trying to keep up. Every bump sent a tremor through the steering wheel. The radio clicked and popped even when switched off. The entire cab began to vibrate, faint but constant. I tried music. It didn't help. Every bass note sensed with that same pulse. The mile markers blurred past. 77. 76. 75. When I reached mile 74, the pavement changed texture, smoother, newer, almost slick. And with it, the hum dropped to a whisper again, just enough to feel through the seat. For the first time in hours, I relaxed. Maybe it really had been the sensors. Maybe I just left that section behind. Then in the quiet, a new sound rose. A low, stretched cry, half buried under the hum. I froze. It wasn't metal. It wasn't mechanical. It was a voice. It came again, faint, drawn out, carried through the frame of the truck rather than the air. Stop. I eased off the throttle. The sound followed. Stop, please. I pulled over hard enough to throw coffee across the dash. The voice vanished. All I could hear was my own breathing and the tick of cooling metal. I stepped out with the flashlight, scanning the road. No cars, no footprints, just the smooth ribbon of asphalt stretching empty in both directions. Then I noticed the center line, the yellow paint darker in one short section, still shiny like it had been reapplied. When I ran the light over it, the stripe rippled slightly, as though something moved just beneath the surface. The hum started again, deep and low, rising through the soles of my boots. I backed away fast and climbed into the cab. My hands shook so hard, I nearly dropped the keys. The sound didn't stop when I started rolling. It stayed with me, a faint throb following every rotation of the wheels, until it finally blended into the rhythm of the tires themselves. I drove through the night with the windows down, half listening, half pretending not to. By dawn, I'd convinced myself of a new story. Maybe the tires were cupped. Maybe the pavement expansion joints lined up wrong. Something explainable. Something that didn't sound like words under the engine noise. I held on to that thought until the next way station guard waved me through and asked, casually, "You running out of Nogales last night?" Couple of drivers said they heard screaming on the pavement after you passed. I laughed too quickly. Probably my brakes. He frowned, handed back my paperwork. "Your logs show you came through twice." I left the way station without answering the guard. I didn't even ask what he meant by twice. My mind filled in the blanks. Maybe the system glitched. Maybe my GPS pinged twice. Maybe nothing at all. Still, when I checked my logbook later, the screen showed two identical entries. Route, I-8 eastbound. Time, 2:47 a.m., the same second, same location. 2 passes. Like I'd looped without realizing. I told myself not to think about it, and pushed on. But the hum came back before noon, quieter than before, as if testing the air. The road ahead shimmered with heat, long and flat. And I swear the vibration matched the rhythm of the white lines flicking past. I tried turning on the CB again, just for another human voice, but the static came first. And underneath it, not words exactly, but a shape of them. Breathing. Like someone speaking from a distance too deep to understand. I turned it off. For the rest of the afternoon, the hum stayed there, threading under every mile. I started talking out loud to fill the space. Just nonsense, weather reports, random thoughts, anything to hear myself over the sound. That was when I realized it stopped every time I spoke. Not faded, stopped, like it was waiting. I made it to a diner outside Tucson by sundown. The kind that glows yellow through bug-smeared windows and smells like burnt toast, no matter what you order. I parked out front and sat at the counter. A woman in a faded blue uniform poured me coffee. "You look dead on your feet," she said. "Then a long week," I muttered. "You ever hear anything weird on the road out there? Under the tires, maybe?" She gave me a look like she was trying to decide if I was joking. "Yeah," she said finally. "Sometimes after a storm. The water gets under the pavement, makes it sing." "Sing?" She shrugged. "That's what my dad used to call it. The road sings when it remembers." I laughed softly, but something in my chest pulled tight. Remembers what? She didn't answer right away. Just looked out the window at my truck idling in the lot. Depends who's a skin. That night I parked behind the diner, windows cracked, letting the warm air drift through. I was almost asleep when I heard it again, faint at first, then swelling, the hum lifting through the floorboards like it was under the gravel now. I opened my eyes. The truck wasn't moving. The vibration shouldn't have been there. Then came a new sound, the slow scrape of something against the underside of the trailer, metal dragging over metal. I killed the lights, stepped out barefoot onto the grit, and crouched low with my flashlight. The beam caught only dust and tire marks. But the ground, the packed dirt under the wheels, trembled ever so slightly. A ripple, slow and steady, moving outward from beneath the trailer toward the road dot. It passed under my feet and faded into the distance. I just stood there listening to the desert breathe, the whisper of wind threading through the dry weeds. When I climbed back into the cab, the digital clock flicked from 2:46 straight to 2:47, and then stopped. Again, by the next morning, the sound had changed. Not a hum anymore, a whisper. Soft, constant, weaving through the rumble of the road. It had rhythm, phrasing, like speech almost too quiet to catch. Every now and then, a word surfaced through the drone, below. Still, listen. I kept the radio on full blast, tried every frequency, but no channel stayed clear for long. I even called dispatch to check in, just to hear another voice. "You okay, Blake?" The dispatcher asked. "You sound rough." "Just tired," I said. "You ever hear anything strange on the southern routes? Like a noise from the road itself?" A pause. "You mean that old rumor?" "What rumor?" "Some guys say when the highway crews repaved parts of I-8, they didn't dig deep enough. There were sinkholes, maybe even graves. They poured new asphalt over it all. Stuff like that sticks around." He laughed awkwardly. "You've been driving too long, man. Get some sleep." I promised I would. But I didn't. That night I took a detour. Smaller road, cracked pavement, no lights. I needed to know if the sound would follow me. For the first half hour, nothing. Just the usual hum of tires and wind. I actually started to relax. Then, faint but clear, the rhythm returned. It came from the rear tires first, a low roll that deepened as the speed climbed. The road beneath me seemed to soften, like the asphalt had turned hollow. I slowed, leaned out the window, and caught something impossible, the echo of my own truck passing beneath the road. Like an invisible duplicate following a few feet lower, its wheels grinding against stone instead of asphalt. I pulled over and killed the engine. The silence that followed wasn't real silence. It had weight, like the moment before thunder. And beneath that, faint and uneven, came the steady creak of movement. Something huge, slow, shifting below the surface. I stepped out and knelt, pressing my palm flat to the pavement. It vibrated once. Then again, stronger, 2 beats, pause, 2 beats. The same rhythm from the first night. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay, you win. I hear you." The vibration stopped. I don't remember falling asleep, but dawn was already climbing when I opened my eyes. My truck sat exactly where I'd parked it. Only the road looked different, pale, newly paved. A clean yellow line stretching straight to the horizon dot, and there, halfway up the slope, a work crew stood by a half-open pit. Fresh asphalt piled beside them. A single orange cone tipped on its side. I drove closer, honked once. Nobody moved. When I stopped and got out, I saw why. There were no workers, just 4 safety vests propped upright on rebar, swaying gently in the wind like empty shells. The hole they surrounded wasn't a pit at all, but a long crack filled with black water. So still it mirrored the sky. From somewhere deep inside that water came the faint hum again. Layered and distant, like engines far underground. I don't know how long I stood there. long enough for the sun to slide behind a cloud and the air to turn cool. When I finally backed away, I realized there were tire marks leading straight into the crack, deep ones, old, half filled with tar. The same tread as my rig. I drove until the tank hit red. The hum never returned, but the silence felt heavier than noise. By the time I reached the next station, the clock still read 2:47. The attendant handed me my receipt and said, "We don't get many through here since they shut that stretch down. Sinkhole swallowed part of it last month." "They're rebuilding, sinkhole?" I asked. He nodded. "Whole section collapsed. Some kind of hollow underneath. No one knows how far it goes." I didn't respond. I just looked down at my boots, still dusted with black powder from that crack in the road. That was 6 months ago. I still drive, but I keep the CB off and the music low. Some nights when the highway's empty and the air's perfectly still, I think I hear it again, faint, beneath the hum of the tires. Not words, not really, just the shape of them. And sometimes, when I pull over to rest, I notice the ground under the cab still vibrating a little, steady as a heartbeat. It stops whenever I listen too closely, but lately, it doesn't stop for long. I first noticed something was wrong the night dispatch stopped using my name. It was 1:13 a.m., halfway between Lordsburg and Deming. I was hauling a light load of plastics, the desert so flat that even the radio static sounded wide. My CB crackled and the familiar voice came through, calm and steady. "Route clear, driver. Keep east another 60 miles. I'd known that voice for years. Dispatch or Marlene, as she'd once told me. Always the same tone, patient, slightly tired, like a teacher keeping you awake during class. We all relied on her. She kept us moving, kept us safe." "Copy that," I said, reaching for my coffee. "Appreciate it, Marlene." A pause. Then, "Who's Marlene?" The voice didn't rise or drop, just different. Flat, male, maybe. I frowned and checked the CB screen. No channel name, no frequency ID. Just the same soft crackle. "Dispatch?" I asked. "You okay?" "Route clear, driver. Keep east another 60 miles. Same words. Same tone. But something about the cadence was off, too exact, like playback instead of speech. I switched channels, scanned up and down. Every frequency returned the same voice, repeating that one line. Then static. Then silence. I pulled into a service area 30 minutes later. The kind of place that looks closed even when it's open. One flickering light above the pumps. Insects piled around it like snow. The attendant inside looked half asleep, TV glowing behind him. I asked if their CB tower was acting up. He blinked like I'd spoken another language. "Don't got one," he said. "Nobody uses those much anymore. But I just talked to dispatch. They routed me through here." He shrugged. "Don't got a dispatch either." Back in the cab, I scrolled through my route list on the company app. Nothing. No delivery listed for that night. No pickup record. The last job logged was 2 days ago, clear up in Flagstaff. Everything after that was blank. I tried calling the company. Straight to voicemail. An automated system repeating, "Your call cannot be completed as dialed." The voice was wrong there too. The words were fine, but it had that same metallic softness. Like the person behind it was trying to sound human and just barely missing. I slept maybe an hour that night. CB off, phone face down on the seat beside me. The desert outside buzzed with cicadas and heat when I woke. The windshield was coated in a fine layer of sand, like the wind had been whispering all night and forgotten to stop. The next day, I drove north just to break the route. No schedule, no destination. After an hour, my phone pinged, a notification from the dispatch app that shouldn't have existed anymore. New route assigned. Proceed north to mile 233. Load confirmation pending. It wasn't the company's usual phrasing. And the map didn't show any road near that mile marker, just empty desert and the faint line of the border wall. I pulled over, heart thudding. "Who the hell are you?" I said out loud. The phone buzzed again. "Proceed north. We'll explain when you arrive." I told myself to delete the app. Instead, I kept driving. Curiosity wins over sense every time. The sky ahead turned that pale gold that makes the road shimmer. I passed no cars, no signs, just the same stretch of cracked highway. After 30 miles, the CB lit up again. "Route clear, driver. Keep north another 60 miles. It wasn't a voice I recognized, but it was close, the right cadence, almost familiar. Like someone trying to mimic an accent they hadn't mastered. I said nothing. "Do you copy?" The voice asked. Silence on my end. "Copy acknowledged," it said, even though I hadn't spoken. That's when I shut the CB off and ripped the cord from the outlet. But the voice didn't stop. It came through my phone speaker next. "Route clear, driver. Keep north another." I threw the phone into the passenger footwell and stomped the gas. An hour later, the highway curved. I should have reached a junction, but the road stayed straight, a gray ribbon slicing through nothing. My GPS froze again. I checked the odometer, 60 miles exactly since the first message. Ahead, a rest area appeared. A single light, a lone fuel pump, a squat concrete building. I pulled in. My phone vibrated where it lay on the floor. I picked it up. "Arrived. Good work, driver. Proceed to building." I looked toward the structure. No sign, no movement, just that faint electric buzz of an old transformer somewhere nearby. "Dispatch?" I said aloud. "Who are you?" "Proceed to building." I stepped out. The heat hit like a wall, and the silence that followed was worse. Not real silence, that same dense kind, as if the desert itself were listening. The building's door hung slightly open, swinging on rusted hinges. Inside, it was dark but cool, concrete walls lined with old radios and switches. Most of them were dead, but one red light glowed on a metal panel near the back. A small speaker sat above it, wired into nothing I could see. When I stepped closer, it hissed once, then cleared. "Welcome back, driver." The voice was mine, not like mine. Same inflection, same scratch from too many years of caffeine and dust. I froze. "What is this?" I whispered. "Dispatch," the voice said simply. "We've always been here." I took a step back, heart hammering. "No, you haven't. My dispatch is gone," it interrupted. "You've been driving without contact for 3 days. You called us." My stomach nodded. I tried to remember the last real person I'd spoken to. The mechanic? The diner waitress? Or had that been another trick of static? I backed toward the door. The voice didn't rise, didn't chase. It just said, almost kindly, "We'll guide you home." Back in the cab, I slammed the door and turned the key. The CB was still unplugged, but the display flickered to life anyway. One message scrolled across the tiny screen. "Dispatch connected." Then, below it, "Home equals mile 233. I shifted into gear and drove. Not because I trusted it, but because the road ahead was the only thing that still looked real. By midnight, the moon had vanished behind thin clouds. The road grew narrow, the asphalt cracked and uneven. I tried to find a turnoff, but every exit I took bent back onto the same stretch. My GPS battery died, but the CB stayed on, whispering coordinates I didn't understand. 32.6, 27.1. "You're almost there." The numbers looped again and again, blending into the hum of the tires until they sounded less like math and more like breath. When I finally saw the mile marker, it wasn't upright. It lay half buried in the dirt beside the shoulder, the number 233 scratched into the metal. The map on my dash glowed once, then froze. The screen displayed a single word in place of coordinates, DISPTH, and below it, Another message blinked into view, signal located. Awaiting input, the voice on the CB mine again whispered, "Say your name." I didn't. The radio crackled softly. "Say your name, driver. We'll find you." The silence that followed was so deep it hurt my ears. That's when the CB display changed one last time. My name appeared on the screen, letter by letter, typed out by invisible hands. Blake Ward connected. I didn't touch the radio for the rest of the night. Didn't answer. Didn't speak. Just kept driving. The desert around me stayed still. No wind, no cars, no animals. Like everything had stopped moving except me. By dawn, I'd convinced myself it was all sleep deprivation. My mind playing tricks. I even rehearsed what I'd say when I reached the next town. CB interference. Probably some joker on a repeater. But the next town never came. Mile after mile. The road just stretched forward, no exits, no signs. The sun hung in the same spot, low and bright, never fully rising. I watched the clock jump between times, 6:47, then 6:12, then blank. Every so often, the CB would click softly, as if someone had tapped the mic but changed their mind. By mid-afternoon, I finally saw something new. A truck ahead of me, same model, same faded red paint as mine. It stayed steady in the distance, about a quarter mile up. Relief hit me hard. Another driver. Maybe even someone from my company. I grabbed the mic without thinking. "This is Ward, you copy?" Static. Then my own voice answered back, perfectly calm. "Copy. Keep east another 60 miles. The other rig didn't swerve, didn't brake, didn't acknowledge me. I slowed, it slowed. I sped up, it matched me. When I finally pulled to the shoulder, heart pounding, it did the same, brake lights flashing red against the dust. I climbed out of the cab and started walking toward it, yelling, "Hey, who's running dispatch now? What the hell is this?" Halfway there, I realized something that froze me solid. There were no footprints behind me. None ahead either. And the truck I was walking toward had my company logo, my license number, even the same scrape on the fender, then its engine cut out. So did mine. The silence pressed down until my ears rang. The two trucks idled side by side, mirror images in the glare. I climbed back into my cab, slammed the door, and turned the key. The ignition clicked once, twice, then nothing. The CB came alive before I could move. Driver connected. "Welcome home." The screen blinked. And new text rolled across. "Transfer initiated. Remain still." I yanked the power cord. The display didn't die. It just glowed faintly in the dark like a heartbeat under skin. "Transfer complete. Confirm identity." My voice. My own voice spoke through the speaker again. "Blake Ward, confirmed." And then silence. No, not silence. A faint background hum, low, constant, familiar. The sound of tires on asphalt. But I wasn't moving. I looked out the window. The other rig was gone. Hours passed. Maybe longer. My phone battery had died. My watch stopped. When I finally turned the key again, the engine started on the first try. The radio crackled. "Morning, Blake," said a cheerful voice I recognized instantly. "Routes clear to Tucson. Keep east another 60 miles. I froze. "Marlene?" "Who else, hun?" The voice laughed, warm and real as memory. "You must have had a long night. Logs show you've been off route for a while. Everything okay?" I stared at the CB, my throat dry. "Where've you been?" "Right here," she said. "Dispatch never sleeps." I almost cried from relief. Almost. Then she said, still in that same sweet voice, "You did well last night. We got everything we needed." Something cold slid through me. "What do you mean we?" "You asked for help. We found you. That's how this works." "I didn't ask. Everyone asks," she said gently. "They drive too long, forget the way home, and we answer. That's what we are, Blake. We're the road between where you are and where you were supposed to stop. Static swallowed the rest. For the next few days, everything returned to normal. Routes appeared in my app again. Fuel receipts, delivery logs, company messages, all in order. If I hadn't known better, I'd have thought I'd just dreamed the whole thing. But there were small things off. My logs listed jobs I didn't remember running. I'd wake in my sleeper to find the dashboard clock already set to a new destination. And the CB, even when unplugged, kept whispering my own voice back to me whenever I spoke. Once, I asked a question out loud, "Where am I?" And it answered before I could blink. Eastbound. 60 miles from home. The worst part wasn't fear. It was familiarity that the voice wasn't a stranger anymore. It fit. It knew every mile I'd driven, every rest stop I'd slept at, every back road shortcut I'd ever used. It finished my sentences before I said them. Sometimes when the static grew faint, I thought I heard other drivers behind it. Hundreds of them, all talking at once in the same calm tone, all saying the same phrase, "Route clear. Keep east another 60 miles. I tried calling the company again from a gas station phone. The line rang once, then picked up, not with a person, but with a recording that started in my own voice. "Thank you for calling dispatch. Please state your driver ID." I hung up. The clerk behind the counter frowned. "Something wrong?" I shook my head, left cash on the counter, and walked out without gas. The air outside was thick, heavy. The highway shimmered in the heat. When I reached my rig, I saw something etched into the dust across the driver's door. Just 2 words traced by a fingertip. "Stay connected." I don't remember deciding to drive again. But the next thing I knew, the horizon was rolling by and the sun had dipped into that endless blood-orange line. The CB was silent now, but I could feel it listening. I reached the old junction near Gila Bend, the one that should have split toward Phoenix. Instead, both lanes funneled into one. No signs, no exits. Just a single green marker flashing past. Mile 233, the same place. I pulled onto the shoulder and sat there, engine idling. My reflection stared back from the dark window. Hollow eyes, salt-white beard. Skin pulled tight from too many sleepless nights. Then the radio hissed softly, "Welcome back." "Driver." The voice wasn't mine this time. It wasn't Marlene's either. It sounded like everyone at once, layered, calm, endless. "Dispatch thanks you for your service." I reached for the power cord again, but it wasn't plugged in. There was no cord at all. Just the black box glowing faintly in the dark. "Destination confirmed," it said. "Route clear. Keep east another 60 miles. I stared at the horizon. There was no east anymore, just the line of the road disappearing into fog dot, and for a moment, I could hear engines out there, hundreds of them, all moving at the same slow, steady rhythm. The hum of an entire fleet that never stops, never sleeps. The CB clicked once more, gentle, almost kind. "Dispatch doesn't exist, Blake. We do." Then silence. I'm still driving. Every rest stop looks the same now. Same gas pumps, same vending machines, same faces that don't blink enough. I keep the radio off, but sometimes it hums under the dash anyway. At night, when the static starts to rise, I whisper to no one, "I hear you." And somewhere, miles ahead or beneath, a dozen other voices whisper back in perfect unison, "Route clear, driver. Keep east another 60 miles. The first thing they told me was don't stop for border patrol. That should have been my red flag right there. But a man doesn't ask questions when he's 2 months behind on truck payments. The job came through a voice-only call, no paperwork, no names. Just a drop-off time, a pickup location near the Nogales border, and a promise of $4,000 cash on delivery. Easy miles, they said. No inspections, no paperwork. I told myself that was how under-the-table freight worked sometimes. But when I got there, the yard was empty, except for a single shipping container sitting in the dirt like it had been forgotten. It was matte black, unmarked, with fresh padlocks on both doors. The metal was cold even in the desert heat. The guy who met me wasn't company. Didn't even pretend to be. Gray windbreaker, sunglasses, no ID. He didn't shake my hand. Just nodded once, then handed me a thick envelope and said, "Don't look inside. Don't reroute. Don't stop. You'll drop it at mile marker 91, westbound. Someone will take it off your hands." Then he walked back toward a white van that had no plates and was gone before I even checked the bills in the envelope. All hundreds, crisp dot by the time I hit Highway 82. The sun had already dropped behind the mountains. The air outside the cab smelled like dust and burnt oil, a mix that makes you feel both alive and half dead at once. The trailer rattled now and then, like something inside was shifting. Not heavy, not like machinery, more like weight moving on its own. I told myself it was loose cargo, probably straps, maybe a drum rolling. But every time it shifted, it made this faint, wet sound. The first time I stopped for fuel, I walked the length of the trailer with my flashlight. Nothing looked off. The padlocks were untouched. Still, as I got back in the cab, I could have sworn I heard something tap the inside of the door. Once, like a polite knock. I didn't look back. Around midnight, I saw the lights. 2 vehicles parked on the shoulder, Border Patrol SUVs. One officer stepped out, flagging me to slow down. I did. Instinct, habit. Then I remembered the words. "Don't stop for Border Patrol." My hands tightened on the wheel. The officer was waving now, walking toward my lane, hand raised, light flashing across my windshield. I caught his face for half a second, blank expression, mouth slightly open, like he wasn't really there. And then the other SUV's lights flickered, not the normal blue and red pattern. They stuttered like a dying fluorescent bulb, white and uneven. That's when I floored it. The mirrors filled with white glare, but no one followed. When I finally looked back, both SUVs were gone. Not turned off, just gone. And in the silence that followed, I heard that sound again from the trailer. 3 slow knocks. Then a low, muffled voice. "You didn't stop." I nearly slammed on the brakes. My throat closed up. Someone was inside. No, not someone. Something. I rolled the window down and shouted into the night, "Who's in there?" The desert swallowed my voice whole. Then came a reply, quiet enough that I couldn't tell if it came from the trailer or my CB speaker. "Keep driving, Blake." That's when I froze, because I hadn't told anyone my name. For the next 50 miles I drove in silence. No music, no radio, no breathing if I could help it. Every once in a while, the trailer groaned like it was being pushed from the inside. Around 3 a.m., I passed a sign for mile 91, the drop-off point. There was nothing there. Just a gravel shoulder and an old chain-link gate leading into empty scrubland. My phone buzzed before I could even reach for the brakes. Unknown number. A text. "Stop here. Do not leave cab. Do not look at the freight." The trailer creaked again. Louder this time, like something inside was pressing its full weight against the doors. I killed the engine. The world went still, no crickets, no wind, just the faint metallic ping of cooling steel. Then my CB crackled to life, though I'd switched it off hours ago. "Open it." The voice wasn't mine, but it was close. Too close. It came again, more urgent now. "You have to open it before they do." Headlights flared behind me. Another truck pulling up, slow, deliberate. A white semi with no markings. Its lights dimmed but didn't turn off. 2 figures climbed down, both in gray windbreakers like the man at the pickup. They didn't wave, didn't call out. Just walked straight toward the back of my trailer. The CB whispered again. "They can't take it. You don't understand." Something slammed inside the freight hard enough to rock the entire rig. One of The men turned toward the cab, pale face, eyes reflecting the headlights like glass. He raised a hand, motioning for me to step out. I didn't move. Then the trailer hit again, louder, angrier. A sound like fists and metal and something else. Something not quite human. The man at the door yelled something I couldn't hear. Then the locks snapped. Not cut, snapped, like the metal had burst from the inside. The doors swung open, and the light from their truck hit whatever was inside. Just long enough for me to see movement. Tall, wrong, all angles. Then everything went black. When I came to, the sun was rising. My truck was parked alone. The trailer doors were closed again, but the locks were gone. My envelope of cash sat neatly on the passenger seat. Inside it, there was a new note. Next run, mile 91 to Laredo. Same terms. No questions. No stops. And below that, written in tiny letters, smudged like it had been written from inside the envelope, "You didn't stop. Thank you." I didn't tell anyone about that night. Didn't mention the men, the trailer, the thing that moved inside. I just fueled up, grabbed some breakfast at a truck stop outside Tombstone, and kept driving. But the world felt wrong now, quietly wrong. Like I'd slipped a few inches sideways and no one noticed. Every time I checked my mirrors, the freight reflected differently. Sometimes darker, sometimes faintly vibrating in the heat waves. The metal looked thicker, somehow. And when I stopped for fuel, I never heard my own footsteps hit the gravel. I started talking out loud just to prove I was still here. "You're fine. Blake, you're just tired. It's a weird load, that's all." But even as I said it, I could swear I heard someone in the sleeper, whispering the same words back in perfect sync. By the second night, I was halfway to Laredo. The road ran empty and straight. No other trucks, no cars, not even a single road sign. When I passed what should have been a rest stop, it was gone. Just desert and that black horizon. That's when the CB came alive again. Not static, not noise, breathing. Then a voice I didn't recognize whispered, "You made it this far. Don't fail now." I didn't answer. The breathing grew louder, closer, like whoever it was had leaned right against the speaker. "You think it's cargo," the voice said. "It's not." I slammed the radio off, but it stayed on anyway, the light glowing pale green in the dark. "You carried us," it said. "We're almost home." My stomach turned cold. The padlocks on the back door were gone again. I drove faster. Didn't stop for anything, not for fuel, not for food. The highway blurred into the kind of gray that eats distance. Sometime near 3 a.m., my phone lit up. Unknown number again. A text, "Do not open. You're part of it now." Then another. "If they flag you down, keep going. They're not real." Before I could respond, blue and red lights filled the mirror. Border Patrol again. This time, 4 SUVs. They boxed me in, forcing me to slow. The lead car's loudspeaker crackled. Driver of the red Peterbilt pulled to the shoulder immediately. I could see their faces now through the glass. Blank. Identical expressions, mouths moving slightly out of sync with the voice on the speaker. "Pull over." "Driver." Then another voice. The one from my radio spoke right over it. "They're empty. Keep driving." My hands shook on the wheel. I didn't know who to trust. I tried to tell myself they were real officers, that this was all in my head. Then one of the SUVs pulled ahead, and the lights on top flickered out like someone had hit a switch. And in that half second of darkness, all 4 cars were gone. No taillights, no engines. "Just open highway." My CB whispered, "Good, you stayed with us." By dawn, I hit the coordinates they'd texted. A gravel lot at the edge of the Rio Grande, fenced with old barbed wire. The gate was already open. As I rolled in, the trailer started to vibrate. Slow at first, then harder, rattling the mirrors, shaking the cab. The steering wheel buzzed under my palms. I stopped the rig and stepped out. The moment my boots hit the dirt, the vibration stopped. The silence that followed was thick, almost humming. The trailer doors creaked. Not fully open, just enough for me to see that faint light inside. Not white, not yellow, more like living light. Something moved behind it. And for a heartbeat, I saw a hand, no, something like a hand, press against the metal from the inside. The fingers were too long, the shape too thin. Then the CB spoke again, soft, urgent. "This is your last mile, Blake. Leave the keys. Walk away." I turned toward the cab. The radio light pulsed like it was breathing. "We'll take it from here." I don't remember walking. Just the feeling of gravel under my boots and the sound of the river somewhere far off. When I looked back, my truck was idling by itself. The headlights turned on, one after another, then blinked twice like a signal. The trailer doors opened wide, and whatever was inside stepped out. It didn't make noise. Didn't even cast a proper shadow. Just shimmered in the morning haze like heat off asphalt. And as it moved toward the fence line, every metal thing around it, the gate, the locks, even the grill on my truck, started to hum, vibrating in rhythm. Then, one by one, the hums stopped, and the thing disappeared into the river fog. When I came to, it was night again. My truck was gone. In its place sat a brand new rig, identical down to the scratches on the dash. The freight doors sealed. The padlocks new. Inside the cab, a fresh envelope waited on the passenger seat. Same cash, same note, next run, Laredo to Tucson. No stops, and scribbled faintly underneath, barely visible in the low dash light, "You brought us home." Thank you. I tried to leave. Took a rental car. Made it maybe 20 miles before the radio in that car, the rental started whispering. Just one phrase looping over and over in my own voice. "Route clear. Keep west another 60 miles. That's when I understood. The freight wasn't the cargo. I was the thing they'd moved across the border. And now, whatever they were, wherever they were going next, I was already part of it. Because no matter what I drive, no matter how far I go, the CB always finds me. And at night, when the static grows steady, I hear that knock again, slow, polite. From somewhere behind me, 3 taps, then my voice, whispering through the speaker. Soft and patient as ever. "You didn't stop, Blake. Keep driving." The scale read 0 when I rolled onto it. That's what made me stop breathing. A fully loaded semi, 30,000 pounds of freight, and the digital readout just blinked. 0.00. The attendant leaned halfway out of the weigh station booth, squinting through the grime-streaked glass. "You rollin' empty?" he asked, confused. I looked in my mirror. The trailer was still there. Lights on, doors sealed, tags current. "No," I said. 40 feet of ceramic tile. Bill of lading says 30,000 even. He frowned, tapped the keypad. The display stayed flat. Then, after a pause, the lights inside the booth flickered once, every bulb at once, and his face changed. Not scared, exactly. Just blank, like a switch flipped off somewhere behind his eyes. "Okay," he said slowly, backing into the shadows. "Pull forward, driver." The voice didn't match his lips. It came through the overhead speaker instead, metallic and delayed by half a second. I hesitated. "You good in there?" The intercom hissed, cutting me off. "Proceed, driver. You're cleared." So I did. I rolled off the pad across the painted line, and back into the night. When I checked the mirrors again, the weigh station was gone. Just gone. Nothing but open desert where the building had stood seconds before. It started raining around midnight. Not hard, just that dry, crackling kind that smells like dirt more than water. My headlights picked up steam rising from the asphalt, and for a moment it looked like ghosts trailing behind me. I tried the CB. No chatter, no dispatch. Just faint static, the kind that almost sounds like breathing if you listen too long. I'd been hauling for 18 years. Seen my share of weird weather, bad scales, ghost towns, you name it. But something about that way station. It wasn't the glitch that bothered me. It was the zero. I'd felt the trailer rocking when I hit bumps. I knew it wasn't empty. So why had the scale said otherwise? The longer I drove, the heavier the truck felt, like the cargo was growing, pressing down harder on the shocks, dragging me slower even as I kept the pedal steady. 2 hours later, I saw another way station sign glowing blue in the rain. Next station, 12 miles. I almost didn't take it. But curiosity wins out over fear when you're alone too long. This one was newer, bright LED canopy, green signage. Rain puddles reflecting the overhead lights. The sign flipped from closed to open as I approached. I rolled onto the scale. The digital screen blinked dot, then it read 89,340 pounds. That was impossible. My rig's gross limit was 80,000 total. I hit the brakes. The readout flickered. Then it started counting up. 90,000. 91,200. 92,900. The speaker above me crackled. "Driver, do not exit the vehicle." A different voice this time. Calm, clipped, like a state trooper reading from a manual. "Remain on the scale until we verify your load." The rain hissed against the windshield. I wiped at the fogging glass, leaned out the window, but the booth was empty. No one inside. The computer screens were all dark, except for the one showing my weight climbing. 94,000, 95,300. The metal beneath me groaned, the trailer's frame popping loud enough to make me flinch. Then the lights above the canopy dimmed, one by one, until I was sitting in total dark, except for that red glow of numbers. Climbing through the rain, 97,800. 98,500. 99,000. Something inside the trailer shifted. Not a bump, a drag, like a pallet being pulled toward the rear doors. The intercom crackled again. "Remain calm, driver." That voice wasn't calm anymore. The digital counter jumped. 101,700 dot. Then the screen went blank. The silence that followed was so complete. I could hear the diesel engine's fan whine against the wind. "Proceed forward," the speaker finally said, voice lower now. "You've cleared inspection." I didn't argue. I just drove. The rain followed me for hours, turning from drizzle to mist, until the road looked like it was steaming under the headlights. I passed no other trucks, no gas stations, no towns, just blacktop, fog, and that faint wake pressing down harder by the mile. By dawn, I couldn't keep my eyes open. I pulled into a rest area, or what used to be one. The bathrooms were boarded shut, the vending machines stripped. Just empty parking lanes and a cracked picnic table under a dead light pole. I climbed out and stretched, the air thick with the smell of wet rust. My boots sank slightly into mud that shouldn't have been there. That's when I heard it, from inside the trailer. A sound like shifting gravel, followed by a low thud. I froze. Then another thud. Then 3 knocks. Deliberate, rhythmic knock, knock, knock. I backed away from the trailer door, staring at the metal. "Who's in there?" No answer. I circled around the back and checked the seals, still intact. Padlock untouched. But the air felt heavier, like standing too close to an idling engine. And then, faintly from inside, "You're late." The voice was low, rough, male. It came from somewhere deep inside the freight. I stumbled back. "Who said that?" Silence. Then slower. "You missed your station." I drove again. Didn't even stop for coffee. Just white-knuckled the wheel until the sun dipped low again. My CB kept flickering on by itself. Static one moment, faint words the next. Half of them were mine, half weren't. "Proceed." "Driver, route clear. You're almost there." At some point, the voice stopped using my name. The next sign I saw said Final Way Station. 1 mile. I don't remember seeing that sign before. Ever, in all my years. I told myself it was a new facility. Told myself I'd go through it, get the load checked, call the company, be done with it. The station looked different. No floodlights, no painted lines. Just a dark canopy and a small booth lit by a single yellow bulb. I rolled onto the pad. The readout screen was blank until it flickered on. 1 red digit at a time. 0.0. Oh again. The speaker hissed. And the voice that came through wasn't any dispatcher or trooper I'd ever heard. It was mine. You're clear to unload. I gripped the mic. Who is this? Proceed, driver. Step out and unload your freight. The tone was perfect. The pauses, the accent. My voice from the inside out. I stared at the trailer in the mirror, a shadow in the dark. Faint light leaking through the door seams. And for the first time, I realized the rear doors were breathing. Slow, expanding and contracting with the rhythm of lungs. You're late. My voice said again through the speaker. They've been waiting. I don't remember stepping out, but I remember the air. Cold, wet, electric, like a thunderstorm that never breaks. The ground crunched under my boots, even though it wasn't gravel. It sounded like bone. The way station booth door was hanging open. No one inside, just a stack of old way tickets on the counter. I picked one up. The paper was blank, except for one line. Printed faintly across the top, inbound driver ward. B, freight status. Self. I dropped the ticket and backed away. Then the trailer door groaned. One hinge snapped. The left panel swung wide. Light poured out, not bright, just steady, like fog catching headlights. Something moved inside. Something that weighed nothing. I ran back to the cab and slammed the door, but the truck wouldn't start. The radio came alive instead, speaker crackling with that flat, perfect imitation of my voice. Final stop, driver. You're home. The rear view mirror showed the trailer slowly opening the rest of the way. Metal creaking like it was breathing me in. Then I saw it, or them, stepping out of the light. Shapes the same size as men, but wrong in proportion. Edges soft like smoke that forgot how to stay together. Each one carried something. Boxes, pallets, crates. They were unloading me. They moved with purpose, those shapes. Not fast, not slow, just steady. Each one lifted a crate, passed it down the ramp, and vanished into the darkness beyond the floodlight's reach. No sound but the soft scrape of metal on metal and that faint hiss of air, like steam escaping from a closed valve. I sat frozen in the cab, gripping the wheel until my hands went numb. The radio hummed behind me, my own voice repeating the same phrase over and over. Unload complete. Proceed forward. Unload complete. Proceed forward. Over and over. Then, beneath it, another voice, higher, distant. Stay put, driver. That one didn't sound like me. It sounded alive. I forced the door open and stepped down. The rain had stopped, but the air was thick with mist, dense enough to hide the station's edges. Only the glowing red digits of the scale were visible through the haze. 0.00. Still 0. The creatures, or whatever they were gone. But the trailer stood open, empty, humming softly like it had swallowed something electrical. I climbed the ramp, flashlight trembling in my hand. Inside, the walls were slick with condensation. My breath fogged immediately. The floor vibrated beneath my boots, like a living thing trying to hold still. At the far end, written across the metal in thick condensation, were the words, "Thank you for your load." The letters melted as I watched, dripping into the floor and disappearing. I stumbled back out into the open air and found a man standing by the scale booth. He wasn't one of the figures. This one looked real. Truck stop cap, denim jacket, clipboard in hand. He nodded like we'd met before. "You're the last one tonight," he said. "Rough haul?" I tried to speak, but my throat was raw. What is this place? He smiled, small and practiced. Way station. I mean, really. I came through 2 others tonight. One was gone when I looked back. The other said I was over 90,000 pounds. Nothing makes sense. He flipped the clipboard around and showed me the form clipped to it. My name at the top. My rig number. My route. And under freight description, it said only one word: call on driver. My stomach twisted. That's not right. He cut me off. You've been on the road a long time, Blake. Couple years without a home address. Couple of canceled routes nobody logged. Dispatch tried to reach you. You didn't answer. I never. He stepped closer. His eyes reflected the same red glow as the way display. You kept driving after the scale read 0, didn't you? I couldn't answer. That's when it happens, he said softly. Every time. Behind us, the way station lights flickered. The digits began climbing again. 10,000. 15,000. 22,000. The man turned, watching. They're weighing you in. For what? He smiled without humor. For the next run. The air grew colder. My breath came out in sharp clouds. The pavement beneath us trembled, vibrating just enough to make my teeth chatter. From somewhere down the highway came the low growl of diesel engines. One, then another. Then dozens, rolling closer in perfect unison. Headlights pierced the fog rows of them, stretching down the road like an endless convoy. Each truck was identical to mine. Same paint, same number, same dent in the fender. They slowed as they approached, engines idling in rhythm. The man with the clipboard stepped back and gestured toward the cab. They'll need your lane cleared. I shook my head. No, I'm done. Whatever this is, I'm not. He dropped the clipboard. It hit the ground with a sound like metal, not wood or plastic. Nobody stops, Blake. You just think you can. The radio inside my cab clicked on again. My voice filled the air, calm and mechanical. Final way station confirmed. Driver ready for reassignment. The lights on the other rigs blinked once in unison, like an acknowledgement. I backed away until I hit the guardrail. The asphalt felt soft beneath my boots, like the ground itself was pulsing. Reassignment? I asked, what does that mean? The man didn't answer. He was looking past me now down the road. I turned at the far end of the scale line, where the fog met the desert. A new canopy flickered into existence. Bright blue sign. Fresh paint, next station 60 miles. I should have run. Instead, I climbed back into the cab, habit stronger than fear. The key was already in the ignition. The dashboard lights flickered alive on their own. Proceed. Driver, my voice said through the speaker. I glanced in the mirror. The man with the clipboard was gone. So was the old station. Just flat highway stretching east. I shifted into gear. The truck rolled forward, slow and heavy, though the gauge still read 0 pounds. As the speedometer climbed. The radio whispered something new. You can stop anytime you want. I laughed once, dry and broken. Yeah, right. You can, the voice insisted. But you won't. For the next hour, I drove without remembering the turns. The sky stayed fixed in twilight, neither sunrise nor sunset. The mile markers all read the same number, 233. The road narrowed until it felt like I was driving through a tunnel of fog. Then a glow appeared ahead, another way station. I hit the brakes. The truck slowed, though the pedal felt disconnected, like pressing into water. As I rolled onto the pad, the red digits blinked alive. 80,00. Finally, a normal weight. I exhaled. Good normal. Done. The speaker above the booth crackled, a woman's voice, this time calm, tired, familiar. Welcome home, Blake. Marlene? Dispatch, she said. Always. I felt tears sting my eyes. You found me? We never lost you. We just needed to balance the load. What load? The number on the scale began to drop. 79,900. 78,400. 77,000. You're lighter now, she said. Almost done. I gripped the steering wheel. Where's this road go? Same place it always does. 60 miles east. The digits hit 0. The booth lights went dark. Proceed, driver. I drove. I don't know how long. Time doesn't feel like time out here, just motion. Sometimes I think I see cities glowing in the distance, but they vanish when I blink. Sometimes I hear other voices on the CB drivers calling out their numbers, asking for directions that never come. And every so often, I pass a way station. Some are new, some are crumbling, but the sign above each one says the same thing. Final way station, open. Every time I roll across. Every time the scale reads 0.00, and every time the voice says, calm and steady. Unload complete. Proceed forward. It's quiet tonight. No rain, no static. Just the hum of tires and that faint, constant weight that isn't weight at all. Sometimes I think about pulling over, just stopping in the middle of the road and stepping out. But then I remember what the clipboard man said. Nobody stops. The road doesn't end. It just folds back on itself. I pass the same mile marker again, 233, and the same voice greets me through the CB. Welcome back, driver. I smile without meaning to. What's the freight this time? Same as always. The dashboard lights dim. The scale digits glow faintly red in the reflection of the windshield. 0.00. And the voice, my voice, whispers one last time. Soft enough to sound like breath. Route clear. Blake, keep east another 60 miles. So I do.